All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Global Entrepreneur. I am here today with Sarah Pomeranz. She's an amazing entrepreneur. I met her in San Francisco during a competition we had in Silicon Valley. So today she's going to talk a little bit more about her experience as an entrepreneur and just tell her story. So Sarah, you can take it from here.
Sure. So like Juan Pablo said, I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm currently a student at Rutgers University. I'm a senior. We met at the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards, which was a really amazing competition put on by the Entrepreneur organization. And I was lucky enough to place third next to some other phenomenal entrepreneurs there as well. And I competed with my venture Sulis and our business. We provide clean water solutions for families in India who are in need. And I've been working on that project for the past about almost 3 years now.
Wow.
So I've been on it for a while. Been a lot of ups and downs, a wild ride for sure, and learned a lot in the process. We've done a ton of different entrepreneurship accelerators. We competed in the $1 million Hult Prize competition, a lot of different business plan competitions, as well as clean energy conferences and those type of things, given keynotes and spoken to people about Sulis on 4 different continents, which is pretty cool. And met amazing entrepreneurs along the way.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about sort of how everything started since you were little and your experiences as a global entrepreneur. I know that you've been to Israel many times. Do you have family there? And do you travel back and forth? What's the story there? Like, how did you become global first?
Yeah, so I think definitely my approach to entrepreneurship has always been a global one because growing up, I have dual citizenship. My father is Israeli. And so we went to Israel a couple times, which, not everyone has the opportunity to travel outside of their town or their state in America, let alone their country. But I did have that opportunity because of the family connection. And once you start traveling, I find most people kind of get a bug for it and realize that there is so much more outside of their culture that they're used to. And it's addictive in a lot of ways to just you crave more of those experiences. And so I lived in Israel for the year after high school. And that's when I really started traveling. So while I was in Israel for that year, I went to China, I went to Greece, I went to Amsterdam, I went to Italy, I went to Switzerland. I tried to pop around to a bunch of different places. And I set the goal for myself of visiting 30 countries before I turned 30. And actually, in December of 2018, I visited Morocco, and that was my 30th country. So I was able to do it 9 years early. Yeah. But definitely, I think that global lens and global exposure was what opened my eyes to so many of the problems that people experience. And it makes you think about the solutions that you want to put out into the world, and that you want them to be global solutions and applicable to as many people as possible.
Absolutely. And then, okay, so tell us more about how you started your venture and why India specifically. Had you been there before? Did you see those problems when you were there? What inspired you to start to solve that problem?
Sure. So I hadn't been to India at the time. I was a sophomore, October 2017, when I joined the team. And initially the technology existed that my co-founders had developed the technology that is the basis of Sulis, but they were coming from that scientific and technological perspective. And I was bringing to the table the business side of things. I also have a minor in social justice. So there's a sociological component as well of how do you get people to adapt new behaviors and how do you consider their needs in the solutions that you're putting out. So that was kind of the lens that I was taking for the problem. And we realized that India was dealing with this very specific pandemic of neglected tropical disease, and their government was highly invested in finding solutions. So that's part of the component, is sometimes you have a tool and you've developed a technology, but you need to find where is going to be the most favorable environment for that technology to succeed. Again and again, through the development of Sulis, we would hear, what about Africa? What about Africa? You know, the entire continent, because people in America have a tendency to just broad strokes the entire continent the same, which we shouldn't do. But there are certain areas of Africa that definitely could use more water cleaning technologies, specifically solar powered, as they do have a lot of sun in sub-Sahara. But we knew that we had a connection, that my co-founder had relationships in West Bengal. Our advisor is Gujarati. And so we had relationships in India, and we knew that it was going to be an environment that the technology and our efforts could have the most impact because of that favorable environment.
Okay. And then did you guys travel to India and then test your product there? Did you get feedback from people there? How did that process work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It became pretty clear to us as soon as we had a minimal viable product that we needed to go on the ground and talk to people. So we crowdfunded the money to get to our pilot program. We set the goal of raising $20,000, and in about a month and a half, we were able to double that and raise $40,000, which is really phenomenal.
Wow. Did you do that through Kickstarter?
Indiegogo. We used Indiegogo. Yeah,
cool.
All platforms, though, they're all great. Crowdfunding. I'm actually reading the CEO of Kickstarter's book right now,
nice.
which I got at the conference that we met at, and it is phenomenal. Yeah. I would definitely recommend it. So we crowdfunded the money, $40,000. We identified 2 universities, and this was really important to us, that if we were working in India, we had to have partners who were going to be our equals. And so we found world-class universities, ISME, the Indian School of Management and Entrepreneurship in Mumbai, and Ganpat University in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India. And we flew over to India. They took us around. They had all these relationships with people in the region. They took us to the water sanitation plants. They had us go meet with people who were living in slums to talk about their current water situation. And I can't emphasize enough how important those local relationships really are in terms of earning the trust of the people in those communities, especially when you're talking about social entrepreneurial solutions. People in developing countries are pretty sick and tired of people coming from Europe and America, with our great ideas and brilliant solutions to solve their problems. And it's, so important that if you believe you have a solution, that you work with people there who have the reputation already in those communities, because they would hear, oh, you're working with Ganpat University. Of course, you can come into our house, come talk to us, come work with us. It opens so many doors. And it's also really important because they understand the problem at a level that I, as an American, could never understand to the same extent.
Absolutely. And you can also play a student card, or kind of like the university card, saying, I'm working with this school. Please help us out. And I think that probably helps too. That's really cool. So hello. All right, I think we're back.
Okay,
There we go.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you came to sort of the startup to Sulis with a more of a business background rather than a tech background. How was that integration for you? Was it easy to sort of assimilate all the technology at once and learn about how it worked and everything? Did you get more interested in tech that way? Like how was that process?
Yeah, I think it is a challenge in general when you're the business person on a technology company, because people will still always expect you to be the technologist, even though you're not. Yeah. So I would get questions all the time about the specifics of the photocatalysis, which is the scientific process with which our device works. And I can talk about it as best as I can understand it. But, the last time I took chemistry was in 10th grade. So, it's important, though, to invest the time as the business side to really research and try your best to go to the meetings where the science teams are having those conversations, talk with the technologists, become as tech fluent as possible. I'm trying to go to a coding boot camp this summer, actually, to increase my baseline competencies there, because I just think even as someone who's never interested in being the coder specifically, there's not enough business people out there who really speak the language and can manage realistic expectations for their tech teams. So that's a really important skill set to have, but it isn't something that comes naturally as being the business person.
No, absolutely. I think if you're in a tech business, you have to know the tech better than everyone else. So in our case, what we did was, we didn't know like the specifics of how to do sort of like machining and how to work with like material composites and other things. We would just go on Udemy and just like take online classes and really try to learn that way. And I would just spend hours and hours reading on how to do things. And that's how we taught ourselves how to do it. So you don't really need to have a technical background to work on a technical idea, but you will have to sort of learn the tech at some point, right?
Yeah, you have to put in the work.
Yeah, especially with, if you're planning to sort of like bootstrap your startup with, competitions and stuff, you're going to get grilled by the judges. So you better sort of know your tech really well.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. And okay, that's super cool. And then how did you get interested in business in the first place? What led you there? And you also say that you took a minor in social justice. That's also super cool. I love people who sort of have, not just one thing, but sort of combine different interests together to building companies.
Yeah, sure. So I guess to answer the first part about business, growing up, I really wanted to do hospitality management. Because I watched the show Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, and I was like, Mr. Mosby is the character I most admire. I want to go into hotel management. And then when I was getting ready to apply to colleges, I visited some of the top schools in hospitality management, and I just couldn't see myself there. I didn't particularly like the intensity of the environment surrounding it, and I felt like I was closing too many doors. Business to me was a door opener. If you have a business background, you can do anything. People will see value in what you're bringing to the table, and it's another one of those languages of the world. Like I feel like there are spoken languages, and then there's like I can speak business, I can speak politics, and I can speak technology. Right? If you can have those three and baseline competency and understanding, people just trust you a lot more in conversations, and it's a lot less catching up to do whatever anyone's talking about. So I think those are the main things that, and I knew business was the one that I was going to be, the least motivated to necessarily learn on my own from an academic standpoint if I didn't have the structure of the coursework. Also, I just think there's a lot of opportunities as a business student. Business schools have so many resources. So it was a bit of a play to become a business student, knowing what I would be able to get out of it. Social justice is, my values. So I've had those my entire life, and I grew up fairly religious, but my religion's traditions are not always the most progressive. And so I've always been someone who's felt it to be interesting to reconcile with two conflicting sets of ideals, like holding tradition and progress at the same time. And simultaneously, being a business student with a social justice minor, I'm also, really straddling that divide of having super economic and capitalist-based courses to much more social-oriented and people-first mentality. And I think that gives me a unique lens for any project I work on.
That's awesome. And then what are sort of like the trends you see in social entrepreneurship?
Oh yeah, so I'm doing my thesis right now on the scale of social entrepreneurial ventures. So I've interviewed CEOs and founders of ventures that have been around for more than 10 years. Mm-hmm. A lot of different trends. Something that's emerging, people talk a lot about, is impact investing. That it used to be really, really hard to get funding and financing for a venture that had a social mission, but that's less so the case. I also think that impact and a purpose used to be a key differentiator, right? So it used to be like, we're different because we have a social mission. But as these corporations and bigger businesses start realizing that our generation cares about that for every business, it's not enough. So if you're going to be a successful small company, you have to be innovative as well. It can't just be the mission and purpose component.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And then, I have a 15-year-old sister, and she's struggling to decide what to do in college and sort of how to get into things. What would you recommend for sort of young kids on how to get started on entrepreneurship and business and technology? What's your advice?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, in terms of knowing what you want to study in college, I think as an entrepreneur, you don't have to, there's no one major for entrepreneurs. You can come to entrepreneurship from a really wide range of perspectives, which is something I really like about it. That, you know, I have a concentration on entrepreneurship, but the kids in my concentration, they're engineers, they're communications majors, they're poli-sci, they're math majors. Like, you could come from anything, their literature, their English major, anything, and go into entrepreneurship. So I don't know if I would say it's as much about what you're studying as it is about how you're thinking about problems and the people that you're talking to and associating with. The greatest skill any entrepreneur has is the ability to network. And so I would say for anyone who's interested in starting their own business, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, going to those meetups, going to the events. Right now, they're going to be they're virtual right now because we're in Corona time. But, you know, just putting yourself in those situations, because as an entrepreneur, you're always going to be uncomfortable. You're never going to know what to say necessarily, what the perfect thing to say is, rather. And the more you get comfortable with that discomfort, I think that will set you up the best for success.
Awesome. And I guess, you know, sort of my final question is, what are your next projects? What are you working on? What are you thinking on? What sort of something interesting you're thinking about?
Yeah, sure. So that's the best thing about this pandemic, besides the fact that I can finish my thesis, is that I have a lot of time to think about what kind of projects I want to be working on. And right now I'm really interested in, it's kind of funny because I am accepting a full-time offer in the fall. So my mind is a little bit of how do you balance the entrepreneurial work while working for a global organization. But I'm really interested in people, our generation, transitioning into the workforce and what that looks like for them. Because I have a lot of friends, you probably do too, who just graduated and took jobs with massive accounting firms, consulting, tech companies, all of these things, and are not happy. They're finding themselves bored or like underutilized. It's really repetitive work. And so how do we better equip employers to be able to utilize the skill sets of people who are leaving college right now? And how do we best manage the expectation of people leaving college as to what the workforce is going to be like? And then retaining values. I mean, as the social justice minor, it's really important to me. I think we leave college with a lot of empathy and with a lot of care for people who are disadvantaged. And as we get out into the workforce, our priorities shift. We have families, we have a lot of other things on our mind, and we can lose focus of that empathy. And so I really want to find a way to have a touch point for people, a community of people who are really empathetic to larger global challenges, and that they can stay connected through that community.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And sort of what is your final advice for people who want to become entrepreneurs, who just don't know where to start? As a wrap up, you know, what are your sort of top 3 tips on how to start and how to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I guess my first tip is always to build. I think it's really important to focus on, I mean, like to plug my TED talk, but, you know, problem first, not solution first. So you don't have to be the technologist, but if you can start going, if there's something you think about that's a problem that you experience, go talk to other people about that problem, as many people as you can. That's really the first place to start, is to try to research one problem as deeply as you can and become the expert on that problem. Because that will really give you insights as to what a solution would have to look like that could meet those needs. So that's number one. When you're ready to take it to the next phase of building a team, build a diverse team from the get-go. That's Sulis's greatest asset. I say it all the time. We're a team that comes from a bunch of different perspectives, you know, and how we work, nationality. But that's something that gets a lot harder to do if you wait until after you have to start hiring people. If you start with a diverse team on gender, race, ideas, experience, all of those type of things early on, it'll really, really help. And the last thing I would say is just get that idea out in front of as many people as possible to get feedback, protect it reasonably. But if you start doing, the more pitch competitions you do, the more you get out there and talk to people in the field about that you're working on, the better you'll be able to iterate the product and the quicker you'll get to a solution that can go to market. And you'll get a lot of supporters that way too, and a lot of money by just talking about your idea. So I'd say the best time to start a business is in college because you have such a safety net. You're also a student, and everyone who meets you is going to be blown away that you're also starting a business, and they want you to succeed. And that's a key difference. Once you get into the real world, people don't always want you to succeed, but in college they do. So take advantage of that.
100%. Plus, when you're in college, you have all of these resources, the entrepreneurship centers, the competitions, the access to capital, so many things that you can just, sort of build your company at the early stages, and then after you're done with college, kind of transition into that. So I guess that's where all of us were trying to do, but that's super cool. All right. Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks everyone for watching this episode. Please comment in the comment section if you have questions for us. And I'm also going to post Sarah's TED Talk. That was awesome. I just watched it yesterday. So I'm going to post a link in the comment section as well. So everyone, please watch that. All right. Well, thanks, Sarah. Have a good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Bye.